Now, Time Magazine Senior Correspondent Massimo Calabresi. He's here with this week's issue, The Secret Plan to Stop Putin's Election Plot. And inside, Massimo details a previously undisclosed 15-page plan that lays out how the Obama White House was preparing for a possible Election Day cyber incident, which Massimo writes included on November 1st, the White House went so far as to wargame an Election Day attack. Over the course of 5 hours, the National Security Council ran a fictionalized sequence of events to rehearse how federal agencies would communicate and respond in a real attack. Some of the scenarios dealt with actual vote meddling, while others focused on disinformation efforts to undermine the election. As the nightmare scenarios unfolded, from voters turned away to violence at polling places, the team went over what actions each agency would take and what the legal constraints were on what they could do. And Massimo, I'm wondering, does this plan, these 15 pages, confirm or perhaps raise more questions about why the Obama administration was so quiet about this threat?
Well, what the plan really shows are the extraordinary measures that they put in place to be prepared for a Russian attack, and what that in turn shows is how successful Putin had been in undermining American faith in the electoral process, which was the first and abiding goal of the Russian operation. The administration was prepared to send armed law enforcement personnel to polling places if hackers had shut them down, to mobilize active or reserve Pentagon forces, and to launch a counter-propaganda effort in the wake of the vote. And all of that shows how thoroughly the administration, political candidates, and the country as a whole had been outmaneuvered by Putin's massive influence operation against our faith in democracy.
Massimo, for the benefit of those perhaps in the White House or otherwise who are reluctant to believe the depth and the scope of what happened during the election, could you talk about the cyber fingerprints that showed up and what led to that and what that meant?
Right, so in mid-July, Illinois discovered that someone was trying to download the full file of voters from the state of Illinois, 15 million voter records. When the FBI sent out a cyber action team to investigate in Springfield, Illinois had kept a record of the attack, and they found both IP addresses linked to Russian intelligence and also tactics and procedures that were known to be used by a group of hackers that worked directly for Russian intelligence. And over the course of the summer, more and more states came forward to say that they had been attacked, and in those attacks, the same fingerprints were found, until finally it was more than 20 states that had been successfully compromised by these Russian hackers. And ultimately the White House cybersecurity officials concluded that there wasn't any state that the Russians hadn't tried to penetrate, and they just hadn't seen evidence in some cases.
It's clear the president and a lot of his supporters aren't convinced yet that the Russians were truly trying to interfere in the election. In the report, is there anybody in the government, anybody involved in the process who's raising any doubt whatsoever about the Russian campaign?
No, I literally have sources, FBI, intelligence, political appointees, both parties, saying, look, I'll swear on my mother's grave it was the Russians. They can't talk about more specifics than we've already detailed and that have been laid out in public testimony repeatedly on the Hill, because it gets at sources and methods and our ability to understand what Russians are continuing to try and do against our faith in democracy. But there isn't any doubt among anybody who is involved in this professionally and who has done it for the majority of their lives that this was the Russians.
That is a much bigger picture here. The new issue of Time is out now. Massimo Calabresi, thank you very, very much. And still ahead,